You know, sometimes life throws you curveballs, and you feel like you're drowning, like everything you've ever known is crumbling around you. But what do you do when the person you trusted most, the one who promised to love you forever, turns out to be a complete stranger, a deceitful monster who left you with nothing but a shattered heart and a mountain of lies? I'm talking about my late husband, Richard, and his audacious mistress, Sarah. Was I wrong to plot my revenge for months, to wait for the perfect moment to utterly obliterate her pathetic attempt to steal everything my husband and I had built? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? It all started, as these things often do, with a seemingly perfect life. Richard and I had been married for 35 years. 35 years, think about that. We met in college, young and full of dreams. He was charming, ambitious, and incredibly intelligent. I was a bit more reserved, an artist, but we clicked instantly. We built our life from the ground up. I put my own artistic career on hold, not completely, but I focused on supporting Richard's burgeoning career in real estate. He was a natural, a shark in the best possible way, always closing deals, always making money. We had a beautiful home, 2 wonderful children who were now grown and had their own lives, and a comfortable, secure future. Or so I thought. Our life was a tapestry woven with shared laughter, quiet evenings, triumphs, and the occasional squabble, all held together by what I believed was an unbreakable bond of love and trust. We traveled, we entertained, we dreamed. We were that couple, the ones everyone looked up to, the ones who had it all. Our children, Emily and Michael, had always seen us as the epitome of a stable, loving marriage, and that meant the world to me. We celebrated every anniversary, every birthday, every small victory. I truly believed we were in it for the long haul, hand in hand, until our golden years. I remember our last anniversary, just a few months before everything imploded. He bought me a beautiful sapphire necklace, my birthstone, and we had a quiet dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. He looked at me across the table, his eyes twinkling, and said, "To 35 more years, my love." I believed him. Every single word. Then, the accident. It was sudden, brutal, and completely unexpected. Richard was on his way to a client meeting, a routine drive, when a distracted driver swerved into his lane. He was gone instantly, my world shattered. The grief was overwhelming, a physical weight that pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. Our children were devastated. We clung to each other, trying to navigate the raw, aching void Richard had left behind. In the midst of my sorrow, preparing for the funeral, dealing with the endless condolences, the last thing I expected was another devastating blow. It came in the form of a phone call, not from a friend or family member, but from a lawyer I didn't recognize. He introduced himself as Mr. Davies and informed me, in a gravely polite tone, that he was representing Ms. Sarah Jenkins, and that she had a claim on Richard's estate. My heart pounded in my chest. A claim? What on earth was he talking about? I barely registered his next words, something about a will, a new will. I dismissed it as some bureaucratic mix-up, another layer of stress in an already impossible time. I had known about Richard's will for years. It was simple and straightforward. Everything went to me and then to our children. There was no Ms. Sarah Jenkins in our lives, but Sarah Jenkins wasn't just a bureaucratic mix-up. Oh no, she was a very real, very blonde, very audacious woman who arrived at Richard's wake, brazenly introducing herself to me as Richard's true love. My blood ran cold. The audacity! She had the gall to stand there, in front of our grieving children, our friends, our family, and spew her venom. My daughter, Emily, ever the fiery one, immediately confronted her, demanding to know who she was. Sarah just smiled, a sickeningly sweet, pitying smile, and said, "I'm the woman Richard was going to leave your mother for." The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. My son, Michael, had to physically restrain Emily from lunging at her. I felt a wave of nausea, a dizzying sensation of unreality. This couldn't be happening, not here, not now, not ever. The days that followed were a blur of shock, anger, and unimaginable pain. It wasn't just the grief of losing Richard. It was the sickening realization that the man I had loved for so long, the man I had built a life with, had been living a lie. A double life, and this woman, this Sarah, was the proof. Then came the legal battle. Mr. Davies, her lawyer, produced a will, dated just 3 months before Richard's death. This new will stated that Richard was leaving everything, our house, our savings, his business, to Sarah. Everything to her. My husband, the man who had promised me 35 more years, had secretly disinherited me, his wife of over 3 decades, and his own children, in favor of his mistress. The betrayal was a physical blow. It was worse than the grief, worse than the shock. It was a complete obliteration of my past, my present, and my future. My lawyer, a kind but somewhat flustered man named Mr. Peterson, assured me that it was an uphill battle. The will was properly executed, witnessed, seemingly legitimate. Sarah had all her ducks in a row. She even had photos, text messages, emails, a sordid chronicle of their affair, spanning 5 years. 5 years, while I was planning our anniversary dinners, he was planning a future with her. I felt like a fool, utterly and completely humiliated. My children were enraged. They couldn't believe their father, the man they adored, could have done something so cruel, so heartless. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was stripped of my husband, my future, and almost everything I owned, all by a woman who thought she was clever, thought she had one. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have given up? Would you have accepted defeat? Or would you have fought back, tooth and nail, for what was rightfully yours? I spent weeks in a fog of despair, but then a flicker of something ignited within me, a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just fighting for money or property. I was fighting for my dignity, for the memory of the life I thought I had, for my children's inheritance. I couldn't let her win. I started to dig. I went through every single one of Richard's old documents, every receipt, every letter, every file in his home office. My children helped me, sifting through boxes, desperate for any shred of evidence that would expose Sarah's deceit. We talked to his former colleagues, his golf buddies, even the barista at his favorite coffee shop. Nothing. It seemed Richard had been meticulous in covering his tracks, a true master of deception. The new will, though devastating, was signed, sealed, and delivered. The witnesses were his former assistant and her cousin, both of whom corroborated Sarah's story, stating they saw Richard sign it and were present for its execution. It was a brick wall, solid and unyielding. The court date was set, and with each passing day my hope dwindled. Mr. Peterson had done his best, but he admitted that without concrete evidence of undue influence or a prior, more recent will, Sarah's claim was strong. One afternoon, sitting in Richard's study, surrounded by his books, his awards, the very objects that once represented our shared life, a strange memory surfaced. Richard had always been incredibly particular about his possessions, especially his personal documents. He had a habit, a rather unusual one, of hiding things in plain sight. He believed that the safest place to hide something was where no one would ever think to look. I remembered a conversation, years ago, about a particularly valuable stamp collection he owned. He had told me, laughing, that he kept the most valuable stamps in the place where the sun never shines and the wind never blows. I had dismissed it as one of his quirky jokes. But now it resonated. What did that mean? Where was a place in our well-lit, well-ventilated home that fit that description? I looked around the room, feeling a sudden jolt of adrenaline. My eyes fell on the old, ornate grandfather clock in the corner. It hadn't worked in years, just stood there as a decorative piece. It was heavy, dark wood, and mostly ignored. A place where the sun never shines and the wind never blows, inside the clock. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but I had to try. With trembling hands, I approached the clock. It was heavy, impossible to move alone. I called Michael, my son, and explained my crazy theory. He was skeptical, but saw the desperate hope in my eyes. Together, we wrestled the clock away from the wall. Behind it was nothing. My heart sank. But then, as Michael leaned it forward, I noticed something. A small, almost invisible seam in the wooden back panel near the bottom. It looked like a hidden compartment, expertly crafted. My fingers fumbled, tracing the outline. There was a tiny, almost imperceptible latch. I pushed it, and with a soft click, a small section of the wood slid inward, revealing a shallow cavity. Inside, neatly tucked away, was a sealed envelope. My breath hitched. This was it. This had to be it. I tore it open, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the contents. Inside was a legal document, heavy parchment, and a crisp, clean signature. It was a will, but not just any will. It was the will. This will was dated a mere 2 weeks before Richard's death. 2 weeks. It was a complete revocation of all previous wills, and explicitly stated that all his assets, properties, and the entirety of his estate were to be bequeathed to me, his wife, and upon my death, to our children, Emily and Michael, in equal shares. It was witnessed not by his conniving assistant and her cousin, but by his long-time, trusted business partner, Mr. Henderson, and our family doctor, Dr. Anya Sharma, both unimpeachable witnesses. My eyes blurred with tears, but this time they weren't tears of sadness or despair. They were tears of vindication, of fierce, triumphant relief. I had found it, the real will, the true testament to Richard's final wishes. It meant that in those final weeks, perhaps consumed by guilt, or perhaps having a moment of clarity, he had tried to correct his egregious mistake, to undo the terrible wrong he had done to me and our children. He had tried to come back to us to right his wrongs. The pain of his betrayal was still there, a dull ache, but now it was mingled with a complex understanding. He hadn't completely abandoned us. He had tried to make amends. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Sarah sat at her table, smirking, her lawyer, Mr. Davies, looking smug. They thought they had this in the bag. I walked in, my head held high, the envelope clutched tightly in my hands. Mr. Peterson, my lawyer, looked at me, a worried furrow in his brow. He didn't know what I was about to do. I had kept it a secret, even from him, until the last possible moment. I wanted the surprise to be absolute, devastating. As the judge called the proceedings to order, Mr. Davies presented Sarah's will, outlining its validity, the witnesses, the dates. Sarah occasionally shot me condescending glances, a cruel smile playing on her lips. She truly believed she had won. When it was my turn, Mr. Peterson began to argue about undue influence, about Richard's emotional state. It was a valiant effort, but I could see the judge was unconvinced. Then I leaned over to Mr. Peterson and whispered, "I have something." His eyes widened. He looked at me, bewildered, as I handed him the envelope. He quickly read through the document, his face transforming from confusion to stunned realization, then to a wide, incredulous grin. "Your Honor, Mr. Peterson announced, his voice ringing through the silent courtroom, "we have new evidence to present. A more recent, properly executed will, which completely revokes the document presented by the opposing counsel." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Sarah's jaw dropped. Her smug expression vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock and horror. Mr. Davies sprang to his feet, objecting vehemently, demanding to know where this evidence came from. But the judge, intrigued, allowed it. Mr. Peterson presented the will, detailing its contents, the date, and the names of the reputable witnesses. He called Mr. Henderson, Richard's business partner, to the stand. Mr. Henderson, a man of integrity, confirmed he had witnessed Richard signing the will and had seen Dr. Sharma do the same. He spoke about Richard's remorse, his desire to correct his mistakes, his confession of the affair, and his wish to leave everything to his family. Then Dr. Sharma took the stand, corroborating Mr. Henderson's testimony and confirming Richard's sound mind at the time of signing. The air in the courtroom crackled with tension. Sarah was pale, her eyes darting between me and the judge. She knew it was over. The judge, after careful review and a brief recess, delivered his verdict. The latest will, properly executed and witnessed, was indeed the valid one. Sarah's claim was dismissed. The estate, everything Richard and I had built, was mine. The relief that washed over me was immense, overwhelming. I looked at Sarah, her face contorted in a mask of defeat and fury. She had thought she had taken everything, but I had pulled the rug out from under her, right there in court, for everyone to see. She stood up, her eyes blazing, and screamed at me, "You old hag, you tricked him." But her words were hollow, powerless. The judge threatened her with contempt, and she was escorted out, her dreams of ill-gotten wealth shattered. In the aftermath, our lives slowly began to heal. The pain of Richard's betrayal still lingered, a scar on my heart, but the crushing weight of the legal battle was gone. My children, Emily and Michael, were incredibly proud. They saw not just a grieving mother, but a strong, resilient woman who fought for what was right. We donated a portion of Richard's estate to a charity supporting victims of infidelity, a small gesture to acknowledge the complex emotions involved. I also started to pursue my art again, finding solace and expression in my paintings, finally rediscovering the part of myself I had put aside for so long. The house, our home, felt like ours again, cleansed of the dark shadow of deceit. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and proving that sometimes, even when everything seems lost, justice can prevail. This whole ordeal taught me a profound lesson about trust, resilience, and the sometimes unfathomable depths of human nature. It taught me that even in the darkest moments, there can be a hidden strength within you, a fight you didn't know you had. And it taught me that even when someone tries to steal your future, you can always find a way to take it back. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this, where truth and justice ultimately prevail. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.